He said she didn't belong at that company, that she was just a sympathy hire, that maybe if she stopped running off every other week, she could do her job right. But what he didn't know is that she had spent her entire life opening doors no one else wanted to walk through. Her name was Raina Lewis, single mother, licensed real estate assistant, and full-time caregiver to an 8-year-old girl with cerebral palsy. She didn't wear designer suits. She didn't play golf with the executives. She didn't have time for happy hours or team-building retreats. Raina had exactly 43 minutes between getting her daughter, Sophie, out the door in the morning and clocking in at the Keller and Brandt real estate office in downtown Houston. 43 minutes. No time to waste, no margin for error, no support system, just one bus, one chairlift, and a little girl in pigtails asking, "Mommy, are we gonna be late again?" She was already fighting battles no one at that office could see. And her boss, Clinton Brandt, he made sure she knew she wasn't welcome, not because she couldn't do the work, but because she didn't look like what he thought success should be. He never said it out loud. He didn't have to. He said it with every sideways glance, every "can you stay late?" after she'd already reminded him about Sophie's therapy, every "you people always got something going on." He was the kind of man who smiled when he hurt you. Slick hair, shiny shoes, voice like a car commercial. The kind of man who says, "You're lucky to have this job," as if luck was the only reason she'd gotten there. As if showing up every day exhausted, humiliated, and 2 seconds from breaking didn't count. But Raina? She kept going. She kept working because quitting wasn't an option, until the day they called her into that glass-walled conference room and told her she was being let go because of attendance concerns, because of inconsistency, because she had left 1 hour early to take her daughter to therapy. Raina didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't beg. She just stood there, fired for being a mother, and as she walked out of that office, holding a cardboard box with her name on it, Clinton Brandt looked her in the eyes and said, "Some people just aren't built for this business." He thought that was the end. He thought she'd disappear. But that's the thing about women like Raina. They don't vanish. They rebuild. And when they come back with keys. If you've ever had to work twice as hard just to be called half as good, take a moment for yourself. This story might be closer to yours than you think. The day after she was fired, Raina woke up at 4:57 a.m. out of habit. Her body was trained by years of alarms, spills, cries, and the quiet sound of responsibility. She got Sophie ready, fed her applesauce with cinnamon, pulled her hair into 2 tight braids, and waited by the window. Bus 211 came rolling up, same as always. The driver didn't know yet, didn't know Raina wasn't on her way to work anymore. Sophie waved from the window, her little fingers pressed against the glass. "Mama, don't forget my goldfish today," she said with a smile. "The orange kind, not the pizza ones." Raina smiled back, held it together until the bus turned the corner, then sat on the front steps and let the silence hit her like a slap. What now? Rent was due in 11 days. Her daughter had 2 therapy appointments this week, and her last paycheck wouldn't even cover the electric bill and groceries together. She opened her purse, counted the bills. $38.40. That's all she had. But what broke her heart wasn't the money. It was the humiliation, the way Clinton had smirked when he let her go, the way nobody in the office said a word. She had trained half those people, covered their shifts, brought birthday cupcakes, stayed late when her own child was sick, and not one of them stood up. That kind of silence stays with you. It eats at your sense of worth, makes you wonder if maybe you were asking for too much just by being human. But that morning, after the tears dried, Raina did something she hadn't done in years. She pulled out the worn leather folder from her closet, the one with her real estate license. And she called a woman named Letitia, a broker she had met once at a community event. "Hi," she said, voice shaking. "I'm looking for contract work. I used to assist under Keller and Brandt." There was a pause on the other end. Then, "Oh, honey, I remember you. You showed up with a baby and a binder full of comps. Let's talk." Letitia gave her a chance. Not out of pity, but out of respect. By the end of the week, Raina had a listing. A tiny, beat-up condo in East Houston. Nothing glamorous. But it was hers. She cleaned it herself, shot the photos on her old phone, and stood there on Sunday waiting for a buyer with Sophie in her wheelchair beside her, holding a handmade sign that read, "My mommy sells homes." It didn't sell that day, or the next, but it gave her something bigger than money. It gave her a reason to keep going, a new kind of hope. Until, one Thursday morning, Letitia called her with a tone in her voice Raina had never heard before. "You're not going to believe who's listing his property through us," she said. Raina almost dropped the phone, because the name on that property was Clinton Brandt. The listing was clean, 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath, gated neighborhood, Westmore Drive. Seller recently relocated, motivated, must sell fast. That's what the sheet said. But Raina knew better. Clinton Brandt hadn't relocated. He'd run from a misconduct investigation at Keller and Brandt, run from internal HR complaints, run from women who finally started speaking. Whispers turned into formal statements. 3 assistants came forward, and one, temp from accounting, said Clinton cornered her in the copy room. It wasn't about Raina anymore. It was about the rot that had always been there, covered up with glass walls and company slogans. Letitia, calm as always, laid the file on Raina's desk, her eyes steady, her voice soft. "I trust you to handle this professionally. Can you?" Raina nodded. Even though her hand was trembling, she'd spent years walking past that house, a fortress on the hill, all stone and silence. She remembered the day Clinton had shown her photos of it, bragging about the heated floors and imported tile, telling her, "Maybe if you play your cards right, you'll show one like this someday." Now she was holding the keys. But that day, as she unlocked the door and stepped inside the empty echo of that polished hallway, she wasn't thinking about revenge. She was thinking about Sophie, about what it meant to walk through that front door, not as a servant, not as a victim, but as a woman doing her job. The place smelled like old cologne and shame, like the remains of power that slipped away. There were half-packed boxes in the study, a suit jacket still hanging on the back of a chair, and on the granite counter, a folded sheet of paper. She opened it. It was a printed complaint, filed 3 months ago, anonymous, but the words were familiar. "He asked me to stay late and said I owed him. He called me emotional when I asked for time off. He said my daughter wasn't his problem." That last line, that one, that was hers. He had kept it, read it, probably laughed at it, and now it sat there, abandoned in a house he could no longer claim. She put it back in the drawer, wiped the counter, lit a candle, and opened every window in that place. She wasn't just listing a property, she was cleansing it. By sunset it looked like a new home. Clean light, quiet dignity. Raina stood at the front door, buttoned up her blazer, and snapped a photo for the website. It would be live by morning. But as she turned to leave, she heard the creak of a car pulling up the driveway. And when she looked back, Clinton was standing there. He stepped out of the car like he still owned the world. Same haircut, same cufflinks, same smug half-smile like nothing had changed, except everything had. Clinton Brandt had been suspended pending investigation. His name scrubbed from the company site, his fancy assistant nowhere in sight, and the only person standing between him and a sale was Raina. She didn't flinch, didn't speak, just stood on that front step, her clipboard in hand, her shoulders square, her soul tired but tall. "Well, well," he said, stepping up. "Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd vanished." Raina looked him in the eye. "I work for Letitia now." She kept it short, professional. He glanced around. "Looks good. Almost like someone cared about the place." She didn't answer, didn't need to. She had cared. Because even if it was his house, she was the one who had made it shine. She was the one who had wiped the dust from his abandoned life. Clinton stepped past her, walked into the foyer. "Did you find the folder in the kitchen?" he asked, too casually. She paused. "I did." He chuckled. Funny what people say when they think no one's listening. But she saw it, the twitch in his jaw, the way his voice cracked just slightly at the end. He was scared, not of her, but of what she represented, the one who didn't stay silent. Raina closed the door behind them. You here for anything specific? Just wanted to make sure. Everything's moving smoothly. Don't want any drama, you know? She tilted her head. Drama? I thought you didn't believe in that word. His smile faded. He walked toward the kitchen, put both hands on the marble counter. You were never supposed to be a threat, Raina. You were background. Now you're standing in my house, like you won something. She didn't raise her voice, didn't say the dozens of things she could have. She just looked at him, with all the weight of every late shift, every insult, every appointment she raced to with Sophie in the rain. I didn't win anything, she said softly. I just didn't give up. And before he could respond, her phone buzzed. A new message from a name she didn't recognize. Hi, I'm looking for a buyer's agent. I heard you helped list the Westmore Drive house. Are you available for a meeting? Raina looked up. Clinton stared at her, confused. She smiled, because word was spreading, and the door that was once slammed in her face was opening wider than ever. But just as she stepped outside, she saw something stuck to her windshield. A bright pink envelope, no stamp, handwritten. She opened it, and what was inside wasn't meant for her eyes. The paper inside the pink envelope was folded in half, neatly, like a secret someone hoped would stay hidden. At first, Raina thought it was junk. Another flyer, a local campaign, even a thank you note from a neighbor. But when she unfolded it, her heart dropped. It was a letter of recommendation, not for her, but for a woman named Alyssa Reed, written by Clinton Brandt on official Keller and Brandt letterhead, dated 2 months ago, stamped and signed. It read, Alyssa has shown extraordinary loyalty and discretion in her role at the firm. Her attention to detail and unwavering dedication have been invaluable. Any company would be fortunate to have her. Raina stood there, reading it twice, 3 times. Alyssa. She remembered the girl, barely 25, always quiet, always walking fast past the partner offices, never met Raina's eyes, and then she was gone, just disappeared one day. No goodbye, no notice. HR had said nothing. Rumors swirled, but now here was proof, a paper trail, and scribbled in pen at the bottom, almost like an afterthought, was a line that wasn't typed. Please consider this a personal favor. She's been through enough. Enough? What had she been through? Why was Clinton pushing this reference outside the company, in secret? And more importantly, why was this left on Raina's car? She looked around. No one on the street. No signs of who had left it. Just that same awful stillness. She drove home in silence. The letter on the passenger seat, the weight of it pressing into her thoughts. She wanted to let it go. Tell herself it wasn't her business. Tell herself she had her own battles to fight. But Raina had learned something long ago. When women are forced to leave in silence, they leave behind echoes. And this echo needed a voice. So that night, after Sophie fell asleep, after the bedtime story, the breathing treatments and the whispered, I love you, Mommy, Raina opened her laptop. She searched, Alyssa Reed plus Real Estate Houston. Nothing. Then just, Alyssa Reed. Scroll, scroll, until she found it. A Facebook account, private, profile photo of a dog. But the bio said it all. Former assistant at K&B, starting over. Raina hesitated, then sent a message. Hi, I know you don't know me well, but I found something I think belongs to you, and I think maybe you're not the only one who left that office carrying pain. She didn't expect an answer. Not that night, maybe not ever. But the next morning, her phone lit up. A reply. Just 3 words. Can we talk? They met at a diner off I-45. No makeup, no pretenses, just 2 women and 2 cups of black coffee. Alyssa looked smaller than Raina remembered. Not physically, but emotionally, like someone who'd been trying to disappear for months. She held the pink envelope in her hand, fingers trembling slightly. This wasn't supposed to come to you, she said. I left it for someone else. Another girl from the firm. I must have put it on the wrong car. Raina nodded. Let her talk. Didn't rush. I filed a complaint, Alyssa whispered. 2, actually. 1 verbal, 1 written. Clinton. He made it clear it would ruin my chances in this field if I kept pushing. And then suddenly I was offered a glowing recommendation on the condition I resign quietly. Silence. Just the clink of a spoon in coffee. I thought maybe that was justice, Alyssa said, laughing bitterly. Maybe that was the best I could get. A fake letter and my dignity in pieces. Raina reached across the table. I know what it's like to be offered silence in exchange for peace. But peace that costs your voice isn't peace. Alyssa's eyes filled with tears. I just didn't want to be the girl who ruined his career. Raina leaned in. You weren't. He did that all by himself. They talked for nearly 2 hours. Alyssa had names, dates, messages. Raina had details too, patterns, moments others brushed off. And for the first time, neither of them felt crazy or alone. By the end of that meeting, they agreed. This wasn't just about them. It was about the next girl, the one still answering phones, still staying late, still thinking she had to smile through it all. They gathered everything, screenshots, copies, statements. Letitia offered the name of a labor attorney she trusted, one who specialized in discrimination, wrongful termination, gender-based misconduct. And Raina? She kept working, showing houses, raising Sophie, but something had shifted. For years she thought she was just surviving, but now she was starting to fight back. Then one morning, a plain white envelope arrived in her mailbox. No return address. Inside it, a single photo of Clinton, sitting across from a lawyer, hands folded, face pale, and on the back, written in blue ink, "It's happening, keep going." The photo shook her, not because she was scared, but because she wasn't. Not anymore. For the first time in a long time, Raina felt something steady inside her. Not rage, not revenge, but resolve. It was no longer about Clinton. It was about the system that gave men like him offices with glass walls and gave women like her cardboard boxes to carry their careers in. That morning, she dressed Sophie in a new sweater, braided her hair slowly, with care. "Where are we going today, Mommy?" Sophie asked, spooning yogurt into her tiny mouth. Raina smiled. "We're going to meet someone special." She wasn't wrong. Letitia had arranged a quiet meeting with the attorney, a woman named Nadine Clark, sharp, calm, no nonsense, the kind who listened with both ears and never looked at her phone. Raina brought documents, emails, memories that hurt to say out loud. She spoke carefully, like pulling glass from her own throat, and when she was done, Nadine only said, "You've got a case, a strong one." Those words sat heavy in the air, not just legally, but morally, because for so long, Raina thought she had nothing, no proof, no allies, no power. But the truth, she had always carried more than she knew. And now, the weight was starting to shift. Later that night, she sat on the floor beside Sophie's bed. Her daughter held a crayon in one hand and a construction paper in the other. "Can you help me spell something?" Sophie asked. "Of course, baby. What do you want to write?" Sophie paused, then looked her mother straight in the eyes and said, "I want to write, 'My mommy is my hero.'" Raina blinked, held back the tears. They spelled it together, letter by letter. Her daughter's small fingers pushing crayon into paper like it mattered, like it would last forever. She pinned it to the fridge, not just for the words, but for the moment, because it reminded her who she was fighting for. And then came a knock at the door. It was nearly 9 p.m. Raina froze. She walked slowly to the door, looked through the peephole, and there stood someone she hadn't seen in over a year. Her sister. Her name was Tasha, older by 3 years, same jawline, same stubbornness. But their lives had taken 2 very different roads. Tasha had moved to Dallas, married well, no kids, no calls, no time. After their mother died, the visits stopped, the birthdays were missed, and the last time she'd seen Sophie, she was still in diapers. Now she stood at the door, clutching a purse that cost more than Raina's rent, looking like a ghost from another life. "I was in town," she said softly. "Thought I'd check in." Raina didn't move, didn't open the screen. Tasha continued. "I heard what happened. Clinton, the firing. A friend of mine from church sent me the article, said your name came up." That was news to Raina. She hadn't seen any article, hadn't spoken to a reporter. "May I come in?" Tasha asked, more gently this time. Raina hesitated, then stepped aside. The house smelled like dinner. Rice and beans, a little garlic, the leftover warmth of a long day. Tasha looked around, not judgmental, just surprised. "You've done a lot with what you have." Raina gave a tired smile. "I didn't have a choice." Sophie peeked out from the hallway, her little eyes curious, her voice cautious. "Mummy, who's that lady?" Tasha knelt down, smiling in a way Raina hadn't seen since childhood. "I'm your Auntie Tasha, and I've wanted to meet you for a long time." They sat together, talked, the kind of talk that carries old wounds in between the words. And finally, over tea, Tasha said something that broke through the polite silence. "I used to be jealous of you." Raina blinked, laughed once, dry and confused. "Jealous? Of what?" Tasha's eyes glistened. "Of your fire. You were always the one who stood up, even when we were kids, even when it cost you." Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded copy of a newspaper. "Local real estate broker faces misconduct allegations. Subhead, former assistant files federal discrimination complaint." Raina stared. There it was. Her name, not in bold, but in print. "Who leaked this?" she asked, her voice tight. Tasha shook her head. "Doesn't matter. What matters is, people are reading it. Women are sharing it." She leaned forward. "And I'm not here to fix the past, Raina. But I am here to say, whatever door you just opened, I'm standing behind you now." Raina didn't know what to say, didn't trust it yet. But she felt it. For the first time, her story was no longer just her own. And that night, as she scrolled through messages on her phone, she saw a name pop up from the past. Someone from Keller and Brandt. Someone who had never spoken to her before. And the message read, "You were right. I'm ready to talk." Her name was Janelle Turner, operations manager, 15 years at Keller and Brandt, respected, feared, and never involved in drama. Raina barely remembered speaking to her back then. Janelle walked like a woman who didn't have time for small talk. She sat behind tinted glass, signed checks and handled complaints, quietly. But now, she was texting Raina. "Meet me. No office, no calls. There's more you need to know." They met at a library. Corner table, late afternoon sun cutting across her blazer. Janelle was exactly as Raina remembered. Composed, sharp, calm like a storm before thunder. But when she spoke, her voice cracked just once, and that was enough to make Raina lean in. "You started something," Janelle said, not as a compliment but as a fact. "Your complaint wasn't the first, but it was the first to land in the hands of the right attorney, and the first with witnesses who refused to back down." Raina stared. "I didn't even think you noticed me." Janelle sighed. "I noticed. I noticed when you'd clock out early with tears in your eyes. I noticed when Clinton called you high maintenance in front of 2 partners. I noticed when the reports you filed went missing." That stopped Raina cold. "Missing?" Janelle nodded. "I didn't delete them, but someone in HR was filtering. A pattern. Mostly women with kids or accents or chronic needs. A silence stretched between them. Not awkward, just heavy." "I wanted to protect my job," Janelle admitted. "I stayed quiet for years, but then I read what Alyssa filed. And what you filed, and I saw myself." She opened her folder. Inside, copies of internal memos, emails, a spreadsheet, all pointing to a quiet strategy Clinton had built. Push out the inconvenient ones, drown them in paperwork, make their dignity feel like a disruption. "I'm ready to testify," Janelle said. "If this goes federal, you won't stand alone." Raina felt her breath catch. All this time, she thought she was shouting into a void. Turns out, There were echoes coming back. And as she drove home that night, past old bus stops, past buildings that once held her fear, her phone buzzed again. Check your inbox. She opened the email. Attached was a PDF, a scanned version of a contract, signed, stamped. A Keller and Brandt non-disclosure agreement with her name on it, except she had never signed it. She stared at the screen like it was a bad dream. That shaky, looping signature at the bottom of the page. Raina Lewis. But she knew her own name, knew her own pen, and that wasn't it. Someone had forged her. The date on the contract, just days before her termination. The terms, buried deep in legal language. But the meaning was clear. It was designed to silence her, to strip her of legal rights, to block future claims, to trap her with a fake agreement. Raina felt the cold slide down her spine. She'd always known they didn't respect her. But this was criminal. She forwarded the document to Nadine, her attorney. Within minutes, her phone rang. "This is serious," Nadine said. "This is falsification. This isn't just a lawsuit now. This is fraud." Raina sat on the edge of her couch. Sophie slept nearby, curled under her purple blanket. She looked so peaceful, so unaware of the war her mother was in. And in that moment, Raina made a vow. She wasn't just going to defend herself, she was going to expose the whole machine. Because if they could forge her name, how many other women had they done this to? How many single mothers had walked away, believing they had no choice? She opened a box from the closet. Old files, pay stubs, calendar entries, voicemails she'd saved. She started building a timeline, every late night, every denied request, every comment that was brushed off as misunderstood. And then, just after midnight, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number, voicemail. She hit play. A woman's voice, shaky, young, breathless. "Ms. Lewis, I used to work for Clinton too. I left after 2 months. I saw what he did to you. I have emails. I didn't know what to do with them, but I want to help. Please call me." Raina stared at the phone. Another one. Another voice. Another truth rising up from the silence. The case was no longer about a single act. It was a pattern, a system, and now the system had cracks. Wider than ever, louder than ever. And just before she went to sleep, Raina received one last message from Letitia. "Call me in the morning. I have a surprise for you, and I think you'll want to dress nice." The next morning, Raina stood in front of the mirror, hands still, heart racing. She wore her one good blazer, navy with sleeves a bit too tight from wear, pressed slacks, low heels, lip balm, and quiet confidence. Sophie looked up from her cereal bowl. "Mommy, you look like a boss lady." Raina smiled. "I'm just going to meet someone important, baby." Sophie blinked. "Is it a superhero?" Raina kissed her forehead. "Something like that." Letitia picked her up at 10:15 sharp, pulled up in a clean sedan, smelling like jasmine and determination. They didn't say much on the ride, just the low hum of the engine and the sound of something changing in the air. They arrived at a quiet building, not a courthouse, not a company office, a downtown cafe. Letitia nodded toward the back. "Go on in. Table by the window." Raina stepped inside. Her palms were damp, her breath shallow. Then she saw him. Marcus Sloan, senior agent at the Texas Department of Labor, Civil Rights Division. He stood when she approached, extended his hand like she was a colleague, not a victim. "Ms. Lewis," he said, calm and clear, "thank you for meeting with me." She sat. He opened a manila folder. "Your attorney has already briefed me. I reviewed your complaint. And after what we found last night, we're formally opening a federal inquiry into Keller and Brandt's employment practices." Raina's hands froze on her lap. "Federal?" "Yes, ma'am. There's a history here. You're not the only one. You're just the first to not go quietly." He laid out pages, testimonies, screenshots, even an internal chat where someone in HR laughed about another single mom meltdown. Raina's stomach turned, but her shoulders stayed straight. She was no longer just on the receiving end of injustice. She was part of a reckoning. Marcus continued, "We can't promise how long it'll take, but I'll say this, your voice started a process that's going to protect a lot of women. He paused, then added gently, "And you can still pursue a civil case for damages, for wrongful termination, for emotional distress." Raina nodded. She wasn't sure about the money. She didn't want revenge. She wanted restoration. She wanted dignity. She wanted to walk with Sophie through a door that didn't slam shut behind them. As she left the cafe, sunlight hit her face. Not harsh, but warm, like something new was growing. But just as she reached her car, her phone buzzed again. A new text. Unknown number. "He's trying to sell again. Privately. Off market. I thought you should know." And attached was a photo of a new real estate flyer. Same address, same house on Westmore Drive. But this time, it didn't have her name on it. She stared at the photo. There it was, the house she had cleaned, photographed, staged, listed. Only now, her name was gone, replaced with a firm she didn't recognize. No license number, no broker listed, just a contact number and a generic tagline. Luxury property, private sale, serious buyers only. Raina's jaw clenched. It wasn't just petty, it was illegal. Letitia called her back within minutes. Voice clipped, eyes sharp. "He's trying to cut us out. Probably found some backdoor broker willing to pretend the original listing doesn't exist." Raina felt the weight of it all. Not just the sale, but the pattern, the message. Clinton Brandt couldn't control her anymore, so he was trying to erase her. And she was done letting that happen. She went home, pulled up every document she had, screenshots of texts between her and Clinton, the day she staged the house, the day he showed up unannounced, the day he stood in the hallway and said, "You're lucky to be here at all." That voice still echoed, but now it didn't shake her. Letitia filed a cease and desist letter the same day. Her attorney added the forged NDA to the federal case file. And Raina? She wrote something she never thought she'd write, an open letter, to women in real estate, to single mothers, to anyone who'd ever been told they were too much or not enough or hard to manage. She wrote, "You don't have to prove you're worthy. You already are. The system may not see it, but that doesn't change the truth. Keep your records, keep your head, and when they come for your name, don't let them walk away with your story." She posted it anonymously, at first, but by morning it had over 1,000 shares. Then 5,000. Then her name started to appear in the comments. "This sounds like Raina Lewis. I think I met this woman once. She sold my sister a house." Whoever she is, she's telling the truth. She didn't hide. Not this time. She added her name to the post, and under it, just one line, "I'm not going anywhere." That night, as she closed her laptop, she felt Sophie wrap her arms around her waist. "Did you win, Mommy?" Raina looked down, thought for a moment, and said, "Not yet, baby, but the door's open now." And then her phone buzzed again. A message from Janelle. One line. One sentence that made her heart stop. "They're offering him a settlement, quiet, no admission of guilt, unless someone speaks." Loud. She read the message twice, then a third time. "They're offering him a settlement. No trial, no headlines, no official wrongdoing. Just money under the rug and silence wrapped in legal tape." Letitia was furious. "I've seen this before. They pay him to walk away quietly, and everyone else learns a terrible lesson, that speaking up doesn't change anything." But Raina, she wasn't angry. Not yet. She was tired, bone-deep tired, the kind of tired you can't sleep off. For weeks, she had relived every humiliation, reopened wounds, turned her private pain into public record, and now they wanted to pretend none of it ever happened. She took a long walk that night, through her neighborhood, past the cracked sidewalks, past the front porches with wind chimes and children's bikes. She thought of every mother who didn't have a Letitia, every young woman who never filed a complaint, every quiet assistant who left their job, holding not a box of belongings, but a heart full of shame. She passed a bus stop, bus 211, the one she used to ride with Sophie when the world felt heavier than her arms could carry. A man nodded at her from the bench. She nodded back, and suddenly her eyes flooded, because the silence they were offering Clinton was meant to send a message, not just to her, but to every woman watching. And Raina knew, if she stayed quiet now, they'd win. Not just legally, not just financially, they'd win the narrative. They'd rewrite the story to say, she was upset but she moved on. She overreacted. She had no proof. She settled. But Raina hadn't come this far to settle. That night she made a call to Nadine, to Letitia, to Janelle, to Alyssa, and one by one they agreed. It was time to go public. Raina drafted a statement. Personal, clear, truthful. She recorded a video. No filters, no script, just her sitting at her kitchen table, a single photo of Sophie in the background. She spoke not as a victim, but as a witness. She told the truth about the abuse, the silence, the forged NDA, the fake listing, the pressure to disappear. And when she was done, she looked straight into the camera with calm fire in her eyes and said, "This is not just about me. This is about all the women who've been told to be grateful for less, who've been punished for being mothers, who've been erased. I'm not here to destroy anyone. I'm here to make sure no one else gets destroyed." She posted it, closed the app, and waited. 1 hour. Nothing. 2 hours. A few likes. A few shares. Then it spread. Thousands of views. Messages. Women from Dallas, Detroit, Durban, Santo Domingo. "I've lived this. I thought I was crazy. Thank you for saying it out loud." By morning, the video had gone viral. And by noon, Clinton's attorney was calling Nadine. Desperate. But it was too late. The story was out. The silence had been broken, and the door could no longer be closed. But then, just as Raina felt a breath of relief, a knock at her door. This time, it was someone in a suit, and they were holding an envelope marked "Court Summons." It wasn't a criminal trial, not yet, but it was official. A hearing, under oath, a room full of lawyers and transcripts and glassy eyes. They told her she didn't have to testify, that the video was enough, that public pressure was shifting the weight. But Raina said, "No, if they want my voice, they're going to hear it in person." The courtroom wasn't grand, just beige walls and a stiff carpet, but it felt like standing in front of the world. Clinton sat at a long table, clean suit, new lawyer, no expression. Letitia was behind Raina, Nadine at her side, Alyssa in the back row, gripping tissues. Janelle had sent a statement. So had 2 others who never wanted to be named. But today, it was Raina's turn. They swore her in. She sat at the witness table. The judge looked over his glasses. "You may proceed." And for the first few seconds, her mouth went dry. Then she remembered Sophie, the drawing, the words, "My mommy is my hero." She found her breath, and she spoke. Every word came like bricks laid down on a road she was building in real time. She didn't embellish, didn't dramatize, just told the truth about the long hours, the mockery, the indifference, the dismissal, the forged document, the erased name. She ended with this: "I am not the first woman this happened to, but I intend to be the last who stays quiet. If you punish me for speaking, you send a message to every woman watching, and I promise you, they are watching." Silence fell over the room. The judge nodded. No comments, no questions. And when Raina walked out of that courthouse, the sky had changed. Clear, still, like something sacred had passed. Letitia hugged her on the steps. "You did it." Raina shook her head. "No, we did it." They stood there a long time, no rush, no fear. And just as Raina turned to go home, Letitia tapped her arm. "I almost forgot. You've got a new listing. Client requested you by name. Wants you to handle everything. Big property, good commission." Raina raised an eyebrow. "Who?" Letitia grinned, slipped her a folder. Inside, photos of a modern condo in the city. On the last page, a note. "He used to be your boss. Now you sell his house. Make it count." It was the same door, same lock, same tile entrance, same cold air when she stepped inside. But this time, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel like a visitor, or an assistant, or a problem to be managed. She was the one holding the clipboard, the camera, the contract, and the key. Her name was on the listing now, her signature on the paperwork, her photo on the marketing page. And the man who once told her she was too emotional, He no longer worked in real estate. He no longer controlled the room. He no longer held her name hostage in HR files. Now he was just a man, trying to sell a house he didn't live in anymore. Letitia had smiled when she handed Raina the listing. He doesn't get to choose who holds the pen anymore. And Raina had smiled back, not because it was sweet, but because it was right. She walked through each room, taking careful notes. Not for him, for herself, for the dignity of her work, for the message this home would carry. She staged it lightly, soft linens, a vase of wildflowers, a photograph of a black mother and child on the hallway table. Not a stock image, but her and Sophie. Buyers came, one by one, quiet, curious, and Raina spoke with calm grace. No push, no apology, just truth. This home has a past, she said, but it's ready for someone new to write the next chapter. Within a week, it sold, full price, no games. And when Raina signed the closing paperwork, she tucked Sophie's drawing into her bag. The one that read, "My mommy is my hero." She didn't hang it on a fridge this time. She framed it, put it on her new desk, in a small downtown office, with her name on the door. Raina Lewis, licensed broker, independent, fearless, mother, survivor. And when Sophie came in after school one day, pushing her wheelchair through the door, she looked around and said, "Mommy, is this your office?" Raina knelt down, took her daughter's face in her hands, and whispered, "Yes, baby, this is our door. And we're never waiting for someone else to open it again." Because in the end, she thought she was working for a man who had all the keys, but it was her, with her soft voice, her steady feet, her righteous fire, who had carried the real key all along. The key to healing, the key to change, the key to a door that could never be closed again. Mr. Solomon, vos firm e serena. If this story reminded you of your own, let it live in the comments, because sometimes, my dear, the door isn't locked. We just need the right key and courage to turn it.